false advertising. We do not have James Lipton. We lied.
What that guy is such a good interviewer, but it's really because he has amazing researchers. Like he hires so whoever owns that show, they clearly hire like an army of private detectives to like find out people, and then they just like spring it on them that like, yes, we've been surveilling every inch of your life.
That's a good starting point, actually, because it allows us
Hi,
to delve
Jay.
into like what is our whole world about. Good to be with you, man.
Good to be with
Yeah,
you.
welcome to Millennials Are Killing Capitalism and the East is a podcast where I think we're co-streaming, right? We're on yours
Yes.
too, right? Yes.
Yes.
And yeah, we thought we'd talk a little bit about podcasting. We also could say at the at the outset that um like what 7 o'clock yesterday, you and I are texting back and forth like, well, maybe we have to do a war episode again. And then decided that I don't know, maybe we should start there. Is this all theater, Cena? Is this all like
No.
was it just
Yeah.
testing out to see the readiness of the Iranians if the US and the Zios launched a bunch of shit, what would happen?
Well, actually I don't think so. I think that what I saw from like the Iranian people I follow is that this was actually this was actually sort of an Iranian initiative, so to speak. Insofar as the blockade around Iran is an act of war, so it's like breaking the ceasefire. It is like an aggressive act. So that Americans are trying to like in by doing this blockade, blockading the blockade, they're trying to square the circle of their own defeat. I was kind of thinking about this, like, yeah, because Iran's control of the straits cannot be changed. It is permanent. It is cemented forever. It will never be like it was before. So we've already like crossed one threshold, and so the U.S. is like trying to just basically get around that fact by saying that, well, we're going to keep you from the benefits of this policy. And there's this great clip from Marco Mossad, where I put it on my Instagram and my Twitter, where he basically explains what's.
I lost your audio, Cena. I don't know if that's my end. Do people hear you?
I muted myself when I moved it.
Okay.
Sorry, I do that a lot. I went wherever I was. I was because I
You
was
said you were
fussing
you
with
you
it.
talked to so you Marco and you said he basically explains and then it cut right out at
Yes.
that point.
He basically sorry, it's fussing. I'm fussing and mussing. He basically like explains what's happening, which is Iran's control of the straits are permanent, and like he can't say that. And he said, "Oh, they're trying to make this a new normal." And he explains basically like from the Iranian perspective exactly what's happening. So like he breaks kayfabe for a second accidentally, and you can see I'll find it on my YouTube. I'm on my channel and I'll load it because I basically edited to the point where it was like necessary and all his blustering was done. But for the moment, for a tiny brief moment, you had this kind of like of an honest assessment of U.S. foreign policy and its disastrous effect in this war. And that's why I cut it. It was just kind of like a funny video, but it did remind me largely of like something that I don't think we really like appreciate, which is like we live in a fascistic, imperialist mediascape. Like just we should like go around and like normalize that. Like we should like yesterday I felt it was crazy. I was like it's like a scene out of a movie. I switched to CNN. I do a lot. You'll be surprised. My focus isn't exactly amazing. Breaking news here, but I do a lot of like just surfing channels just to kind of see like what's in the news section of my TV provider, and I landed on Fox, and it's that horrible um Jesse Waters, I want to say, not Walter, either Walters or Waters, whatever. Awful, just an awful. And they're just doing average evening pogrom language against Somalis. Like that's it. Like just the scale of the racism has never, at least in my memory, I haven't watched mainstream news in a long time, obviously, and I get none of it. And then I decided to go. So there's that, and then there's like one guy trying to be like, well, you can't make these claims. You're making these facts, and he's like, why can't I? Something to that effect. Just a monstrous scene where this guy who's been put there to play the role of like, just this ridiculous, just the most fascistic, disgusting, like race hate moment. And it's just casually presented to boomers and millions, if not tens of millions of Angloid scumbags, one of them being my neighbors the other day, I discovered, are watching this and just consuming this. Yeah, Jesse Waters. Thank you, Chad. And then I went from there to disgusting. Was it Jake Tapper? It was Jake Tapper, and Jake Tapper talking to some child in her, like, I don't know, mid-20s or something, from the Hudson Institute, basically doing more like regime change propaganda. And actually, the more I think about it, like, he was the host. He was basically like channeling Trump himself, being like, why haven't they given in? We've hit them hard. We've hit them hard. Trump even sort of point to the point of, civilizational attack, but they haven't been. And the Hudson 25-year-old's like, yeah, it's kind of bad. It's not good. We don't hit we don't hit civilians. Like, she had to be the one to cue it, because it's the CNN. Usually it was the CNN host who'd be like, well, we don't do that sort of thing. But the guy was basically just communicating the threats. So I was like, okay, and this was, I'm not kidding, this was maybe like a 90-second like span of time. Like I got like a Chernobyl scale radiation dose. Like I felt like the dudes who walked into Chernobyl with like, sorry, I should laugh. It's a very sad story, but that was the immediate, it's an immediate reaction that I had. Like, what did I just wade into? And then you realize that like millions of Americans are watching this, and they're paying to watch it, man. They pay money to watch it, considerable amounts. So the framework of all this, which is us, you and me, in our little shows, like our little Thomas the Tank Engine media empire that we have, that reaches, like a whopping 6,000 people at any given time combined. Okay, like maybe we scatter with audio and just the ripples, let's say 10,000 people at a time, maybe. Like, that's generous for our two shows, because we're small, right? And then
yeah, and most of the people who listen to you listen to me.
Same people.
So not...
not even that big.
The Venn diagram is like is a circle, like little slices on each side.
Yes, but that's fine. This is all we need. But then you think like, oh, we'll never be Hassan Piker. Like we gave that up long ago. We've both probably plateaued long ago, in terms of just our reach. But then you can't really measure this in any kind of scale, because it's not like, our job is not to be like Hassan Piker. That's not like, Hassan Piker is Hassan Piker. Like the Chapo guys are the Chapo guys. They have audiences that reach 10, 50 times our scale more. But they do a certain job, and they have a captive kind of audience. And the same way with like ass-eating Jesse Waters, he has a large captive audience too. And so we have a captive audience. It's just minuscule compared to those other two. But then you realize like, oh, the toes, what we're trying to do is like just dip our toes into a wider field. And even if we can only get like a tiny bit in, that's what you can do. And with that, you can kind of then find a network of people who are interested in kind of having these conversations. And from that, you grow. Like, I'm not like a 90s theory guy, but it's like the Deleuze and Guattari. I mean, they just take this from Plant World or whatever, which is like rhizomatic. You go under the earth and your kind of roots spread. You don't have to be super visible above the earth, and you just kind of do that. So 8 years of podcast, fast forward like 8 years of podcasting, like my numbers themselves or whatever, it's probably same with you, but it's that the scale of the conversations we've had, the amount of hours that people have spent with us, which is insane. Talk about like wading into Chernobyl, the pool of Chernobyl. But like that is something that, and that those media companies would like sacrifice their like nephews for like that kind of, like, let's say, brand loyalty. Like, a lot of what we do, we provide to people, and like that's a service, and that's not a service, but in the sense of like that's like the basic exchange. Like, we curate information, you and I sort of follow the news, and we talk about stuff, and then we digest it live or sometimes pre-recorded, and we like give it back to people. And in those like small little gestures, you can do a tiny little bit of work of like uncovering this insanely fascist media world. So yeah, I'm just kind of like reflecting on these years, reflecting on Alexa Flood, reflecting on the fact that like the media sphere has changed so much even since Alexa Flood. Forget since Corona, forget since 2000 kind of 17, 18, when you and I spawn out of the earth. Maybe I was 18. I think you're 17, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's right.
But like in that kind of era of it, when it was like mostly audio only, it had its own kind of history. So yeah, it's I'm curious overall if there are kind of like lessons, or kind of at the outset, what are the kind of biggest things that come to you in this time? Like, what of looking back in retrospect, like what biggest changes, but also just like trends or whoever, that you can kind of discern at this stage? Because 8 years is a long time in internet media. That's like 300 years in the history of print in like a translation.
Yeah, I mean, there's a whole lot that you talked about there that's interesting to talk about. I mean, I think so. I did read Adam Johnson from Citations Needed, and we did an episode with him recently. His How to Sell a Genocide book, which is very interesting. Just like empirical analysis of liberal media and how they covered genocide and how they like actively promoted it, right? Um, and he does it. I brought it up in part because you made me think about when you referenced Jake Tapper, who's a very important figure in that book, and he looks at like the thing I really appreciated about the book is they like really researched it, and then they're like, he does this 272 times, right? Like, says Hamas run like 272 times every day. He has Jonathan Greenblatt on 52 times, like, this kind of shit. The media, I mean, all of the corporate media plays these like specific roles, and there's niches within it, right? I mean, we have to, one thing I understood from his book is he's like, I'm not going to talk about right-wing media because it's openly fascist, which was kind of the point that you're making. I actually think right-wing media is super interesting, because it's also way more effective than liberal media. People know that liberal media is bullshit, but they falsely think that if they listen to like the far right, or I mean, Fox News is mild compared to what you get in the like far right podcast sphere, which is where a lot of people are. They're out there listening to the freaks and geeks on the right, who are telling them, talking about Zog and all this other shit. And I mean, for a long time, I've thought about this as just like, look, if capital can fund it, right, then this is the reason. Like, the right's media is just better because there's just more financial support behind this, and it also is willing to kind of pull back layers of the kayfabe, right, in ways that liberal media really does not want to do. But it pulls back the layers of the kayfabe in order to give people new kayfabe, right? It's like,
Yeah.
you know,
It's the tweet from Drill. turning up a dial that says racism and looking back at the crowd as it cheers or whatever. Like
Yeah.
that's the right wing model.
Yeah, exactly. And it, and this fits within well-worn patterns of just like white settler, society and ideology, right? It's it's not hard to find a history of, white nativist sentiment that, hates immigrant people, and certainly it's very useful in manufacturing consent for all kinds of, imperial operations. Um, Whereas the liberal media is much more, um, it has trouble, I think, like managing its own contradictions in a different way, if that makes sense to you, right? Because it wants to be like nice, it wants to be, oh, we love, multicultural, we care about other people, we're multiracial, da 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 da. We'll put up, we'll we'll show like an execution video of a black person, and we'll talk about how it's sad, but then we'll say, but this is why we have to give more money to our police, right? So it's like it literally like makes no sense on its face. You watch it and you're just like, what the fuck are they talking about right now? Um, and so all of it is just a mess. And yeah, I mean it does a real number on, I think, older Gen Xers up in particular. Um,
That's the thing. Like you just said something about like it doesn't make any sense, but it does. It makes sense to a certain class of people. So like all of these things you brought up. Not sorry to interrupt you, but like just
no, you're fine.
you know what I mean? Because I think it's true what you're saying. Like it is. If you listen to it, it is like just genuinely brainless. Like it's just slop. Like it's just well prepped slop. And what you said about right wing media being better, I do say that it's better in a sense that like it's the production. There's like better. There's different kinds of better. There's like production quality. There's like efficacy of a reach. There's the connection between media audience and like behavior of media consumers. These are all like different ways we can like study media. But like I do think that like liberal media is highly effective, but for a dwindling number of people, and that those people are dying off. Whereas the rightoid fascistic media is like evergreen, at least in terms of its like base, because like we live in the land of like counter revolution. Like this is an empire like enshrined on counter revolution, but it's also an empire confronting its own like flatulent decline, partly largely brought on itself and in full accelerationist mode by dreaming up this insane, Looney Tunes scale regime change op in Iran that has now since cost it its world order. So like I'm watching Jesse Waters like just go to town on Somali people, like, and I'm like just like this is what people make themselves feel better, like rightoid chuds. This is their soothing baby bottle like pacifier that they suckle on to like as they watch their gas prices go up. They can't drive their precious trucks. Their jobs they're getting laid off. They can't get beef. Like this is their identities are at stake. And instead of like confronting that reality and doing something about it, they're doing the drill tweet of, like turn up the dial, the racism dial.
Yeah.
And this is like, yeah, this is the reality.
Yeah. So
Somebody had a question about the name of the book. Adam, can you say it? How to Sell a Genocide
yeah,
by
it's out on Pluto
Adam
Press. If
Johnson.
you Yeah, Adam Johnson. You can go to get Lara Shihai's book and his book at Pluto Press. I should plug both of those. Um, it's good. It's as he said, and I talked to him about. He was like, it's a book for liberals, right? So you should go into it knowing that it's not like giving you the most radical pro-Palestinian, anti-Zionist case. It's literally just like this is how liberal media sold genocide to the people, and it's very effective in laying that out. And he makes some he actually I appreciated in the conversation we had is like he really had a nice, take on all these J Street talking points that are coming out now of this like new, like the social democrat candidate, like, oh well, we'll condition aid and we're gonna do like this kind of soft weapons embargo thing that you're hearing from some of these like AOC type people and stuff like that. He actually really talked about it as just like counterinsurgency, which I appreciated. um but that takes me to Hassan Piker. I mean, before I go there, you're absolutely right on the right wing thing. I have friends that I grew up with that, was, we all hung out. Most of us were much more left than him, but his family watched Fox News and the History Channel like all the fucking time. And lo and behold, here he is in his mid 40s and he's an absolute chud. Sorry, Aaron, but you are. But anyway,
He's
so
probably not watching this.
no, he's not. But if he is, it's okay. I'm fine saying it to you. Um,
Let's text him now. Phone a friend.
but Hassan, I mean, so like Hassan is very important to liberals, right? Like I think that this is really important for people to understand because he is desperately trying to shore up the Democratic Party. He is the kind of version of it's like a controlled opposition liberal media spot. Like, and look, he says things that I agree with a lot of the time. He's further to the left than a lot of his peers. He's critical in the right areas plenty of the time. But ultimately, like, what is his political project? It's getting more progressive candidates to run in the Democratic Party and convincing hundreds of thousands of people that they need to get invested in that project and that is the pathway somehow to somehow that conveys over to like radical politics, and it just doesn't, right? We have like so many with 250 years of history of this like not working.
Fell for it again award. Fell for it again award. Guess I'm gonna give out the fell for it again award. I mean, yeah, like I was thinking about this too. I was like, did these guys not learn from the Chapo fiasco? They went all in on Bernie. And they not only squished him like a bug, Bernie kissed the ring like almost right away. Like it was humiliated. Like they really thought Bernie was it. And I don't know. It's just it's the peanuts thing. It's Lucy and the football every time. And I think it's like there's a deeper, darker thing, which is like ultimately like this class of people recognizes that like a fundamental shift in the political order would probably more than likely be costly to them, that they would require them to sacrifice a chunk of their like material comforts, and maybe not directly, maybe not right away, but there is they have that thing. But then here's the reality. At the end of the day, none of this matters. America is changing. Like the world order is changing. Like you didn't have a say in it because you didn't want it to go, but now that it is, and to bring it back to like our original topic, like this is where stuff like us come in, because like people are going to increasingly like the failure of this media class, particularly in confronting the genocide. I have a low opinion of like the people, sure, of populations, especially in like where our part of the world. But ultimately, I do think that there's like when presented with the reality of like what Zionists have done, they're probably disgusted by it and they hate it, and they may not see it. They may not have it on their mind, but that it does sort of trigger something in them. And I think that that's the root of all this, is that the fundamental that and the inability of any kind of media class to like confront it, other than like a tiny sway of people, and the few who do get like yeeted out into like non-existence, professional non-existence in 5 seconds, like comically so, where like the ruling class is so shameless in flaunting their censorship and their just refusal to accept anyone criticizing their precious little ethno state, to the point where the only people who can are like the weirdos like us who literally sit and talk into cameras and like scream it from the world, and like that's all you get. You can just sit in your little room and yell, and like that's the closest you'll get. Like we'll never get an invite to CNN or even Hassan Piker, which is fine. Who cares? But that's all you can do. That's all you're allowed. And you know, they leave us alone because there's like they know they can't fire us because what are they going to fire us from? Our podcasts, our own shows, and that's literally the only safety you can get is if you like set up a tent somewhere in the middle of like the forest and start shouting and like a few scragglers show up and like that and otherwise they shut you down. Like it's happening to my friend right now, Ali Zadeh. I mean, I don't know if it's happening, but he had his Instagram account shut down. I think 6 months ago. He had both his Twitters nuked, both. So it's happened. It happened. Arya, one of the great, OSINT bros. Bro centers, as we call them. Not an insult to Arya. He's not a bro. He just happened to be a bro who does OSINT, but he's not a brosint guy. But yeah, they got kicked out of Twitter. The public sphere, as we know, is not going to tolerate, too much anti-Yankoid thinking. Like you can only do so many subversion points before you get kicked off. For whatever reason, we've been allowed to flourish, but I guess we also learned to like keep our heads down. I know I'm not going to post like Hezbollah videos. Like I'm not going to post, like I'm not going to do that. I'm not going to show what's important to show, what's newsworthy, in fact, that gets, and that there's another conversation we should have about like the culture around this like online video sharing, but that can come later. But I think ultimately, to take it back to our question, that like there is going to be a very real and uncomfortable decline for tens, hundreds of millions of people, billions, billions, because everybody connected to this U.S. world system is gonna start feeling it soon. And they will start looking for alternatives. People who don't just be like, hey, did you ever try voting for Democrats? Like they'll come to actual radicals. Now, the problem is more of them will go to the fascoids, even if they haven't before. Like they'll go to the like angry fascoids. Like we should probably talk about Fuentes because he's another character in all of this. And, because we know that like Jesse Waters and them, that's for like, toothless boomers sitting in there, like who are, 70 and above. Like young people don't watch Fox News. Like they don't give a shit about any of that. So, but they do consume that stuff, and they like more than likely go to, I don't know, they probably go to Twitch. God knows where they go, but I don't know. Yeah, that's something that I want us to also keep in mind here. As small as we are, we're here to incubate a certain kind of critique and a certain kind of content. And if like our shows don't make it in whatever next phase this is, fine. But hopefully we've done our job and left behind like kind of other people who are like, okay, I remember those shows from MAKC. I remember that guy who was on East as a podcast once. Like I can find, and like maybe they continue it. I don't know. Maybe that's self-serving.
Well, I mean, I think for me, like one of the big nagging issues for a long time, right, is like that unfortunately a large part of our, us, but others within the kind of whatever we want to say, like anti-imperialist, anti-Zionist, generally pro-socialist, right, commentariat, is that most of us are really not strongly attached to meaningful political projects, right? And so people watch us. Shout out to everybody watching right now. You are probably at your job watching this on a tab or listening to it on a tab as you do spreadsheets and stuff like that. Information, jobs that will soon be done by AI. I'm sorry. Do whatever you can to fuck that up at your workplace. I said to my son the other day, I don't know if there'll be jobs for you when you grow up, but you're a good worker. But the
his nimble fingers will make clips for his papa, no doubt.
Yeah, hey, look, I'll hire them. Yeah, I've offered that to my eldest, so he keeps turning me down, but I'm like, "Hey, you can make thumbnails." But anyway, um, or your work from home. Like, I think a lot of our folks, like, they have jobs that are, able to do remotely and so on, and so there's not so it's like a kind of class of people, I think, who can work without the eye being, like, super watchful on them, and they're still doing their jobs, but they're kind of listening in the background. That's people who watch live. I know people who watch the replays later and so on, because usually I'm streaming in the mornings, and I assume that people are doing something else. Um, People who watch later on could be from, any sort of walk of life, right? But why did I say that? Well, just I think a lot of people consume it all as critique, like you were saying. And it's fun, it feels good to critique things. It reinforces how we feel about the world. It lets us know that we're not crazy, or if we are, that our craziness, makes more sense than anyone else's, basically. Um, and I think that that's helpful. It provides people. I mean, we also provide people at our best some really good analysis. I think that people don't find a lot of other places because the people that we
Nourishing
platform,
content. That's the good
yeah,
word. Nourishing.
that's exactly. So even for me, and this is where I'm been more reflective lately, is like, I don't honestly when we I mean, so Imperial 80s is a critical project. It will probably continue to do that for a while because it's kind of fun. But I'm less and less interested in, like, the critical side of things, which is a struggle because I think generally that's what people want. Right? So there is this reality, I think, that we deal with, where it's like, if we're putting out content that touches on, like, kind of a conspiratorial thing, or like a very critical analysis, even critical of folks on the left, right? That people like that. People, it confirms how they feel, but ultimately, like, we do have to do shit. Like, if we want, like, I know that you're right in terms of the objective conditions of the world are such that the US led capitalism is a project of diminishing returns, and it will continue to lash out violently, and that people also will be disgusted by that from within the place. All kinds of things are going to get more expensive. It's just going to become a very kind of um, difficult and unsustainable project. But that's going to leave a lot of people just sort of alienated. And if we're just critical too, and we're not like, hey, go join this organization or participate in this political project or this movement, then there's also diminishing returns, I think, of what we have to offer. And I think that some of the groups that we've named, part of their legitimacy to people is that they are selling a political solution. It's a bullshit one, right? But it's like, hey, like, join me in supporting, AOC and Bernie, and, you know, these races against, Nancy, let's get Nancy Pelosi out of there, like all of this kind of stuff. Um, and people are like, yeah, like, that's something I can do. I can change this. We can slowly get to anti-Zionism through 51 votes of the Senate. um but there's other examples of it too that are not that. Like, there's kind of the whole American Communist Party, like the weird, like the MAGA communist folks and stuff like that. Like, part of the appeal of them is also that they are offering people some kind of political project to get on board with, some kind of movement,
Also an
right?
anti-capitalist one, at least in
Yeah.
their understanding of like their class position, or at least supposedly. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm, again, like, I'm definitely not here to, like, tell people, "Hey, go join those folks." Um, but I do think that this is something that a lot of us have to deal with, right? Is that, and the difficult or the frustrating part about it for me is that when we platform organizations, when we platform organizers, when we platform people who are actually doing something and are like, hey, you could do this too, very rarely do people want to listen to those conversations or watch them.
Oh yes, yes, exactly. Oh, I can confirm that.
Yeah. And so it's like, I mean, like we've hosted 3 conversations with GPI in Italy, which is like the Palestinian youth movement there. And those fucking people are amazing. Like these organizers are doing like incredible work. They're mapping out like every bolt and socket that's getting attached to a rocket and being shipped to the entity and showing like what ports it's going through and all this kind of stuff, right? And they have been a part of organizing like, you know, even if they're just for a day or 2, like general strikes, like actually getting people to go out and like stand on railroad tracks and shit like that, things that just are unfathomable. And I get it, like on some level, people probably in the West are like, well, I'm not going to watch that because we're so far away removed from that reality of being able to do something like that, that, you know, but I don't think we can leave it up to that solely because we also platform organizers in the US context and people don't watch that stuff or listen to that stuff either. So I don't know. I mean, and maybe it's because it's not the one solution or the one campaign to like do it all, which is the allure of something like the ACP folks or the folks who are pushing into the Democratic, DSA, whatever, right? Is it's like sort of like, hey, join this thing, and this thing is your organizing home that can do everything. So I don't know. The only exception I can think of were the conversations we had with Kali Akuno, particularly, towards the end of 2024, like around the election time. And he has a very good like layout of like a plan that people could actually actualize. And so I think in that sense, it's also just a combination of he's just one of those people who is just a captivating speaker, has an amazing analysis, and also can say, here's an organizing approach that you and your friends and you and your local comrades can participate in that um, you know, could do something if enough of us did it, basically. But that's the that's one of the things that I am kind of always frustrated about a little bit is like, okay, there's the critique element, there's the rah-rah element, go team, and each of these has a certain kind of audience to it. But then when you get to like, okay, like let's organize or let's develop a political project or program, then it's like that's where I think our side of things is not as helpful to people. Some people who watch, a good number of people who watch are already involved in organizing and in those movements. And so they actually don't need that. Right. And so they come to us because of the guests that we have and because those guests help them in their movement spaces, parties, organizations to bring that in and say, hey guys, like check this out. This is something we should think about in terms of what we're doing right now, or this is an analysis we should look at to really understand things. And that's probably us at our best as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah, no, I mean, there is something directly in response. I would say that, like in this any kind of conversation, and you sort of mentioned it, but we really have to stress it, which is how intense the repression is in the English speaking world, the UK specifically, and also the US. Canada slightly less so, but in general, there's this sort of official state repressive apparatus that's pointed towards specifically kind of anti-imperialist and sort of pro anti-Zionist speech. Like we know that, but then more generally, the sort of culture of surveillance, the fascioid nature of our media, like we are like in the trenches, surrounded by the enemy on like every register. I mean, that's real. That's not. I don't think we can like they hound us. They hound anyone. I mean, look what they're doing to Calla Walsh right now. I mean, they want
Yeah,
these
let's talk
people
about
have
Calla. Yeah,
dark designs. They want to whip people up into a frenzy. I did an episode. This is way random, but I just did an episode on the show that I do with Nick. Nick Estes on behind our respective paywalls. Sorry, everyone. It's very cruel. It's called Pod Capital. It's a Marxism podcast that you have to pay for. Go
it's a
figure.
great it's a great show.
Uh,
No,
it's
it is though.
fun, but and I mean, we really should unlock it. But the live streams are free. But one thing that we read this week was Karl Marx's journalism during the 1850s, during the Crimean War specifically, and he was a warmongering freak when it came to the Crimean War. Um, he believed just the war was the solution to everything, and it got me thinking about the sort of larger questions around how intellectuals and academics and journalists, and Marx was all three, their role they play specifically in warmongering. And that's been on my mind, and the roles they play, like either consciously, subconsciously, and how the actual sort of the imperialist media machine, the sort of the wretched ultra Zionist, hate filled, evil imperialist machine that we live under, like their rules, we live in like under their machine. Like it's just we're surrounded by it so immensely. And just to me, that like it reminds me of like just the task of staying alive, just staying alive and not having your channel nuked. And my solution, I mean, yours is, it seems to me at least, that like your solution to this, even if we don't name this, which is just to be relentless and just like, okay, I'm going to do 1,800 live streams in 5 days, which like is your solution. Mine is to start a podcast every 6 seconds, apparently. Like that's like, we're both trying to like reproduce this kind of critique. And my I don't org up. I never have. I've been an academic. I guess it's also telling about like our backgrounds. Like I came to podcasting as like an academic refugee, and my entire world up until that point had been academic life. And then I'm flung out into the ocean, castaway, Tom Hanks, and you try to build something. You start talking to the volleyball. Called your phone, or your Yeti Blue back in those days, and that's all I could do. And so, but my training and my impulse was to do historical stuff, academic stuff, whatever, educational stuff. But at the end of the day, there's like a real problem that both of us are really trying to address, which is just like the ignorance and provincialism of the Westoid world. I mean, we are a bunch of yokels. I mean, yokels has that class connotation. I'm sorry. And I live with yokels, so I'm not saying you're stupid, because libs are a lot, whatever.
I'm a
There's a
yokel.
lot of, yeah, but so whatever. But you know what I mean? Figuratively speaking. But we are with like provincial. This is a provincial culture. It's afraid of the outside world. The people who engage the outside world, a ton of them are doing it for like dark reasons funded by like Raytheon. And like that's the kind of like cultural world that we live in, that like otherwise it's just stay in your little bubble, get your daily dose of like Goebbels propaganda via your local like right-wing fascioid influencer. And eat your carbs and have your sugar, and die by the age of 70 after you retire, so hopefully, and we don't have to pay for you, like in the medical system. Like this is the darkness of our neoliberal life. Like they want us to labor until we're like useless, and then we die off. Like, and in the meantime, like sit in your box at home, eat the food that's killing you, and hate the people we tell you to hate. So for me, like I'm not an org guy, but what my solution is to be a peasant. I want to be a peasant. I'm growing stuff. I'm a gardener. Some of you may know this about me. I mean, obviously, I'm not in a city. I live in the country, so not everyone can do what I do. But that's been my solution. I've given up on cities. Cities for me are like a wasteland. I'm like, it's so funny. The more I live around chuds, the more I start to like adopt their like tenets of their worldview, which is like our cities are bad, but like they're afraid of cities because they're full of racialized people. That's the best part of a city, in fact. But unfortunately, like the rest around it is what's terrible. Like Toronto, the city that I grew up in, is so vile and unrecognizable to me that like every time I go down, I'm like, oh God, what is this? Like I just have the horrible, but that's also like I've always wanted to live in the country. I don't know. Yeah. So like this is something that we have to consider. We live in a very hostile environment, hostile to us. We work on hostile platforms, and there's no shortage of weirdos who would be more than happy to see us penniless freaks, and like without a platform. But you just have to lumber on. Like if dudes in Gaza can like dig themselves out of a tunnel and go and put a bomb, you know, on a like a whatever on a Merkava, like we can live on YouTube and get our channels deleted and go do something else and try to continue. Like that's okay with me. Like being small and doing our work is okay. It's just the question of this kind of episode, and maybe the chat, it's good. Maybe we should check the chat, what they're saying to us. Because it's like, what is this for? Like, what are we doing this for? Because that's important. Like we have to do nourishing content that makes people more worldly, and that's what I can do. That's like I feel like that's what both of us are doing. And you bring a lot of people from the struggle. That's the thing. Even those little episodes that you do that don't get much traction, like that's you are leaving behind like an oral history of knowledge and tactics and training. And like I don't know, when the world of plants, like you can just leave one root behind, and it's like 6 months later you're like, oh man, I thought I nuked that plant and it's back. Like weeding is a funny science, because you're like trying to get everything out. You're just like, you're not supposed to be there, you're not supposed to be there. But under the ground, you can't go digging under the ground to see what's actually growing. Like that's the thing, and then it pops up all at once.
Yeah, isn't that a quote from somebody? They didn't know that we were weeds. I don't know. Maybe not. If it is, then anyway.
It should be.
Um, two things: City Wasteland and Calla Walsh. So, um, I went to New York this past weekend. Was it this weekend? Yeah, and saw Mtume's The Hand That Feeds, his first feature film that he directed, wrote, produced. Phenomenal, by the way. Great. If you have a chance to see it, if it comes to a festival near you, then do, and hopefully at some point it'll be available on streaming somewhere. But New York is ridiculous. Like, so I lived in New York for 5 years, loved it. Um, but it was a long time ago now. Like, I haven't lived in New York in almost 20 years, and I've gone back a few times. But this most recent time, every time I go back, I'm like, it's like gentrification happens at a pace in New York that is just unbelievable, right? It's like, it's like terramorphing of freaking, space, and people are just I think I saw 5 black people, and all of them I think were at Mtume's premiere. Like I was like, what it was the whitest that I have ever. Now, granted, I did not go to the Bronx. I didn't go out into like deep into Queens or, the edges of Brooklyn or whatever. But historically, that has not mattered. Like when you're in the city, you know, it- diversity is there, right? And I was just like, everybody was white or like a few probably Gulf country, you know, Arabs, right? Like it was like it was wild to see. And it was shocking actually. Um Calla Walsh. I mean, so there's several things I just want to say about Calla at the outset, which is like one, I do get kind of I do get very frustrated and defensive sometimes towards how people talk about her and treat her. Not in the, I mean, like the Boston Globe, like don't you have anything better to fucking do with yourselves? Like, literally, like, you're going after, I think she's maybe 22 now. Like, you're going after her. That's that's just sad, honestly. But it does show how pathetic the liberal media is. And of course, the Free Press did it first. So then, of course, you have Boston Globe following, you know, Barry Weiss's monstrosity, which also runs CBS at this point because Zionists are just trying to buy up and like put put the worst possible people in charge of everything. Um, but the more frustrating part of it to me is the way that a lot of like DSA leftists and folks talk about her. And I know she was briefly in their organization, so I guess like on some level there's some bit of like, okay, you can be whatever towards the person who used to be in your organization that you have a disagreement with or whatever. But like, I mean, you've said it to me privately. I don't know how you would feel about saying it publicly. But like, there's a
Oh,
there's a
wait a minute, wait a minute. Where's this going? I'm just kidding.
no, just like the campaign against her, right? And like what the aims of the enemy media is towards her, right?
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
the vitriol for her. It's very because it's also like this is this is rightoid cat bait like catnip like to like one of our own traitor, she's young, and like they put her face like we partly why we have existed, I feel like, online for so long is that because we're men we don't get like a fraction, not even like a fraction of a fraction of the hate that women get
you're
online
right.
doing what we do. Not even like a tiny fraction. The way now, like, and that's the thing, like the disposability of men in the online space is an interesting thing here, because like there's like the big names, like there's like the big name main male podcast host, but in general, like the male podcast host is like it's like a male chicken. You throw them away. Nothing good comes of this. We're only here for something else. But like that, the thing with a woman though is that like they get that misogyny bonus or whatever that infuses whatever op is playing. So it's like anti-communist, it's a Zionist also thing, like all these like all these like rivers of hatred, like flowing into it, at least for value of like media bucks. And that's why I brought up that Marx thing earlier, was that like part of the story I think of his own, why he became so jingoistic, is like the media. There was like the New York Tribune, which is one of the biggest papers in its day, published by like a huge name in American letters, Charles Anderson Dana. Like it was not a minor newspaper, and it was like he achieved a famous sort of he achieved a kind of fame that he hadn't before, but it's because it was like for warmongering, and because you realize that it's like the expression in America is like you say like, oh, it's red meat, is that like Marx and like like these warmongers were like throwing red meat to listeners, to readers, who also happen to be probably middle class and businessmen or whatever, or influential people. And this was like at a time when media was exploding in Victorian England too. So you think about like our own equivalent today, where it's like easy now to spread disinformation so easily, and you can like make money doing it too so quickly. Like you could just repackage some stupid video from 3 years ago, be like breaking blah 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 explosion in central Israel, and like you get 3,000 retweets or whatever because it's other bots doing it, whatever. But like that's the scale of our media atmosphere here that we're like fighting in. The wretchedness of it is also something that like we've probably watched happen live. I know we have. Like we've like just it's like just what has happened to Twitter since we started the podcast, let alone since when Twitter started, which unfortunately I'm embarrassed to know. I remember I was there when it started. So like this was 18 internets ago, and so much has changed in this. And at the end of the day, like still what sells though is that racism. Like, do you remember Gamergate? Do you remember
Yeah.
like Milo going after the woman from the Ghostbuster movies? Leslie Jones, like that was they were whipping up, like they were whipping up fascists into like a racist lynching. Like that was a digital lynch. I remember that day even. Like it was crazy. Like this is the atmosphere, and like we haven't even gotten into like the niche social networks like Nextdoor. Like there's that in all of this. Like the online cultures that like Silicon Valley has created are so gross, are so damaging. Like think of what Facebook did to me to Myanmar. Was it Myanmar where they had like
Yeah.
like it was
The Rohingya. Yeah. Yeah.
the Rohingya, yeah, like it's just the level of all of this. It's I don't like we just have to stop and like take stock of like where we operate, in what realm, in what like upside down, like and what we do in the midst of all that to fight against. So I don't think I will say this before, like I don't think you should really you shouldn't like at all worry about like the scale of the reach of your like activist episodes, if we can call them that. That like yeah, it's easier to like do a friend episode where you're talking about latest news, and like Tanky Therapy sells. It doesn't sell. We give away our product for free. When I mean it does well, like Tanky Therapy does well because it taps into a certain kind of vibe. If we were to do Tanky Therapy every day, it wouldn't do as well. We would cultivate like a big-ish audience, but then our lives would be catered to like watching the news, responding to the news, putting clips that are going online, and like I'm already extremely online enough. So like when you do your activist episode, sorry, it sounds like childish the way I'm saying it, but like that's what I mean. But like when you do those like non-online episodes, right? Like they don't do as well because like what's a guy in like Liverpool or whatever going to get out of that, at least in theory? Like, oh, I don't know these struggles or whatever. So they won't tune in. Whereas like the rage bait or clickbait news of the day will draw someone in. And that's also what the algorithms will feed to people too. They'll feed that stuff to people. So like we will never be Jesse Waters, but like being like the equivalent for us is to like do the breaking news stuff. Like breaking today, like Iran fires 40 missiles. Like that's the kind of culture. And like we wouldn't be good at that, first of all. Our personalities aren't suited to that. Like people would like see through us as like phonies. But it's also like it just doesn't last. Like you can't, like you look at all those guys are like all slaves to AI now, like the guys doing that stuff. Like, and you also the volume that like say like I'm not putting him down at all, but like Nima Al Khorshid does, like the volume, like that guy streams 4 or 5 times a day. That guy is a full-time streamer. Like his life is dedicated to streaming. So these are all like kind of things that we have to like calculate in all of this, that like when you are, let's say, like thinking about launching like your own show or whatever, which I encourage everyone to do, which I always do, even if 80 people watch, whatever, just do it. Who cares? Like, do it once a week. Do it in your basement. It doesn't cost anything. And you can talk to people because, oh, and this is what I want to finish on. But I mean, this thought, like partly what we're denied in this culture is healthy talk. Like we don't get healthy discourse. We get chuds. We get culture war. We get trivialities. We get nostalgia. That's a huge thing that we should talk about, because podcast and like the nostalgia industry. Because nostalgia is like, I don't want to look at the world. I want to watch Indiana Jones movie and take it apart for 4 hours. Like that itself is its own provincialism, I find. So, anyways, that's what I want to say. I forgot. Did I finish my point? Anyways, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Thank you. There's a few things you said that we could talk about. Finishing up kind of what I wanted to say on Calla. And yeah, folks, you nailed it. In terms of her being a young woman, and folks in the chat. Yeah, I mean, and it's true. Like I'm always, stuff will happen eh, where largely when I was streaming with Lara regularly, and shout out to Lara Shihai, I would catch a stray occasionally in shit going after her, right? Like, so it'd be like Jared Ware, a podcaster who platforms this terrorist and agrees with everything she says.
That might have been a bot, though. That sounds like botted behavior.
Yeah, but it was in yes. I mean, the bots that write the articles for the Zionists who write for the Times of Israel, yes. But nonetheless, th- like Lara is a great example too. She catches a infinitesimally higher amount. I mean, not no, opposite. Astronomically. That's not even the word I'm looking for. What's the thing when you do it to a power of 2 or a power of 3?
Geometrically? No. Whatever. Yeah. Geometrically? No.
Fuck. Somebody in the chat will know. There's a term for exponentially. There we go. An exponentially higher amount of flack. Like, and sometimes I get mad. I'm like, why don't I get more? I hate Zionists too. Like, you know. Um, but anyway, it's true.
They
It's
throw
it's
away
it
the
is.
male chickens, Jay. They throw
Yeah,
them
they
away.
don't care. They don't care. They don't care. So actually, I mean, I do think we should use that to our own advantage as much as possible, right? It's like, okay, we're men, and I'm a white man, and like, so, I should really go into like go as hard as I can, right? Um, but the other thing, you talked about criticism in there, you talked about nostalgia, and you talked about like what sells, right? And this has long been one of my hangups or just difficulties. Is one, I spend too much time looking at the data of my episodes, right? So like how long do people watch for? How long do they listen? What are how many views, how many watch hours, how many subscribers?
Do you
Like
really look at all that stuff?
I do all the time.
Why? It makes no
Because,
difference.
like, well, it does. I mean, for one, it does. Financially, it means something. Partly because we're monetized, right? So, like, this means a little bit, but the monetization is like, I think at the most it's ever been is like 8 or 9% of our monthly, like what Josh and I bring in monthly. But and there's even been many times when I've like really thought about just selectively demonetizing, because it's like, would people just give more if it wasn't monetized in any way, And it wasn't for a long time, when we were just doing audio stuff. But when we switched to video, I was like, well, why not, right? Why shouldn't I get these fucking corporations to pay to run ads on our shit? Um, but it does bring you into that. And I mean, I think Gabriel Rockhill is like a really interesting example in this of stuff we've done recently, because on the one hand, his like, if I looked at the work that we do, his is one of the most popular things, like the interview that we did and the clips that I made from it do way better than almost everything else that we've ever done, right? With two exceptions, only at this point, which was like one interview I did with Fred Moten and one interview I did with VJ Prasad. And VJ, of course, like being from India and being like, I just feel like there's just a large, and having been in, these spaces for a very long time, right? Like there's just a large audience that follows him wherever he goes. And Fred Moten similarly, like just there's a huge number of people who just seek out what he has to say, particularly in interviews. Rockhill's more of a recent phenomenon, in that you've interviewed him before, I've interviewed him before. There was always people who were interested in his work, but I think with this new book and how controversial it is and people attacking him as well as just people following him over the last few years, people have become more and more interested in watching him. Um and like it's interesting in a couple of registers. One, it touches on the critical component, right? Like he is critiquing a lot of where the left and the imperial core has gone over the last 100 years, basically. And I think, doing a really good job of that. But in that critique, he also, although he doesn't play this up within his research or within his interviews in particular, he does touch on things that kind of excite certain receptors in our brain, right? Of like, oh, you're talking about the CIA, you're talking about the Rockefellers, you're talking about the Dulles brothers, like Kennedy, like I'm not saying he takes it there, but people's brains go to like Kennedy assassination, like, all of these kinds of things that we know, or even through like limited hangouts really have been pushed to us of like these are the people who have done these really, nefarious things behind the scenes. And Rockhill has a much more structural analysis than that. Like he does talk about them as actors within like larger structures. And that's what I appreciate about his approach, right? Is it's not just like, look at what Alan Dulles is doing, right? But it's like, okay, these are institutions that are built by these people that play these roles over time, right? And there's people in it that have different levels of agency and debates and all of that kind of stuff, of course, but like what is the structural purpose of a lot of these things. Um but the other thing that he touches on that I do want to spend a little bit of time with is he talks about, it's either intellectual or theoretical commodity fetishism. And like this is really an important concept, I think, right? Because what he's talking about is that ideas get produced to produce books, right? Or to produce cultural products, to produce podcasts, like to produce all of these kinds of things, right? And so we've lived through a lot of cycles of this in the last 8 years. And even if I go back and look at my podcast over the last 8 years, I'd be like, oh, yeah, like during that year, there were a whole bunch of books and a whole bunch of, prominent, whether it's Verso, Haymarket, um, whoever, right? Like, I don't even mean to just pick on them. AK Press, PM Press, whatever. Like, there's a whole bunch that are trying to see like this moment that happens, this uprising, this political rebellion of some kind, and provide some kind of theoretical product that they can sell based off of that. Right? So we could talk about George Floyd in this way, right? You could talk about um, the way that the anti-trans kind of movement also spawned up like different forms of theoretical work to sort of say, well, like this is why transgenderism is associated with communism, or like not like it's a kind of communism, it's a kind of Marxism, like the doing theoretical work connecting these things. um, and like on some level, from these publishers, we could say, well, they're trying to respond to real things that are happening in the world and provide them with theoretical ideas to be able to like pull this struggle or this issue into a left wing politics, right? Which is actually something that I would agree with largely we should do, right? Is like if there are going to be these kind of cultural wars and so on and so forth, then it is important for us to like not cede all of this ground to the fascists. And how does it connect to our politics? um but it does get more and more niche. It does get more and more and because of also the politics of some of these presses and some of the organizations and some of the nonprofits and all of this, it kind of then it often, and also I think because of the long durée of this kind of psychological intellectual world war, right? Against just like straight up, we should form a communist party. And like, it becomes these like very, like, you and your friends can get together and try this little political idea among yourselves, or like the solution aspect of it is very empty as well, right? And so this again connects back to our own projects in some ways of like, okay, can critique all of these things, but then what are we telling people to do about them? And I maybe that's not our job, right? But I also think that if you totally abdicate responsibility or discussion about those things, that then it still leaves people kind of politically rudderless. I do think that that's like it's an important at least to offer up what people in the real world are doing in terms of political organizing around these things. But the commodity piece is really something that I've struggled with from the beginning is like, how do we avoid becoming too, for whatever reason, that what we're producing is a product for consumption solely?
So yeah, I've thought about this a lot. I thought about this as an academic a lot, not as much as I should have, but also it was the field that I was in didn't have. This is gonna sound like I sound like a chud when I say it this way, but it didn't have that. But it's libs anyways who are doing this, so who cares? But it's that social justice inflection. It didn't have that the academic level, like sort of humanities, has in recent years kind of taken on to itself. And partly what's happened is the sort of flourishing of, we can say, like minority cultures, like the study of minority cultures, and how not just like study them, but also mining them for radical potentials or cultural symbols or trends or insights. And so the thing that Said said at the sort of Said used this at the epigraph of Orientalism is a famous line is a line from this crazy novel by Benjamin Disraeli, um, called Tancred, and he says, "Oh, the East is a career." And so, like, that's the name of my show. In case you were wondering, that's where it comes from. The East is a podcast, but the lesson of that phrase has always been for me is that people mine stuff from other things, and sometimes other things means local radical struggles, let's say identities that are subversive, right? Like, these are liberal terms. Like, I don't use these terms, but these are things that like liberals say, and in academia they flourish in these spaces, because I know I was from there. That's what like my friends did. Like, that's like you could see that. And then the things that for a certain time, and I think this is still the case, and I'm not being cynical about this. I'm not necessarily saying they're being cynical, but I think this is what the media, this the same way that like Marx's warmongering was encouraged structurally. I think this stuff is encouraged structurally because libs, like DEI libs, like, again, not a chud thing, but I'm saying like in their brains, they like dedicate themselves to this kind of model of liberalism where if you just pump it full of enough representation, you win. It's like a Super Nintendo game. If you press the button enough, you'll get to the bar, and then you've achieved, Kantian
Up, down, left, right, BA,
the
select, start.
canonical. Yeah, if you just arrange enough characters in your academic department, then you've unlocked the secret code of progressivism of the future. But so it's like I'm mocking these things, but I think naturally academia is a place where the study of these things and the discovery, let's say, of these trends or of these new voices or whatever becomes a place, and then they trickle down outside those spaces. Art world picks them up, and I mean, I'm creating a certain teleology here where academia sits on top and things come out. Sure, you can like it. Sometimes it goes the other way, right? Where it's like certain trends make their way upwards, and then academia like ruin them or whatever. And I think what all of this is to say is that I don't think you can help making things into a commodity. We live in a commodified society. Everything becomes commodified. Everything emerges. The French love saying this, déjà toujours or whatever, toujours déjà. I never remember which one it is. It's always already, right? Like, it's always already a
I fucking
commodity.
hate that phrase so much.
Oh my god, people stop saying it. Well, it's interesting. Yeah,
no,
like the culture.
it still comes up.
Is it come up? Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah. It still comes up. I fucking hate that shit.
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Like that language
Yeah.
popularized because a certain kind of French theory that I was nourished on became a kind of what's the word? What's when you speak a certain language? It's a Franco whatever, I can't remember. Romanic. No, anyways, it'll come to me. It became the kind of vernacular of how we discuss these things. So like I do think that these things filter in. I don't think we can stop it from being commodified. However, you can be conscious of it. You can resist the urge to like get people to give you money when things happen, because that's what lingua franca. Thank you, Peapod. Like I think the you can resist it. You know, I think like the tragedy of one tragedy of BLM is that like the people, the leaders, obviously the leaders literally were martyred, and their martyrdom not only was not just not noticed or not acknowledged, but other people who siphoned their energy and their radicalism made immense amount of money, further cynicism, adding cynicism to future generations, being like, look what happened, look what the BLM people did. Like they'll always associate, like not always, but I can't help but like, and this was done obviously as this is one of the counterinsurgency tools that the empire has against them, is that you can take something radical and taint it. You can take something radical, something that's like something that has a certain energy to it, and you can siphon it into places where they can then be associated with and be like, oh look, it was just those libs who lived off of it, and they're like in Topanga somewhere. I think they're literally in Topanga. They bought a house somewhere. I used to live in Topanga. Oh, Topanga mentioned.
I didn't know that Topanga was a place. I always thought it was Boy Meets World's like girlfriend.
Yeah, it was a place. Yeah, weird energy there. There's a lot of dark forces there, but it's like kind of connected to that Laurel Canyon scene that the book I can't remember. Weird Scenes Inside the Canyon are part of. But anyways, yeah, Topanga Canyon, dark place. But yeah, it's fucked. I can't remember what I'm talking about. I'm just thinking about Topanga now.
It's all good. So I forgot to.
That's what it was.
Yeah, commodification. I think I forgot to talk about Calla a little bit more to like finish the point that I wanted to make there. I mean, like I just don't. Part of the frustration I have is that the critiques of her are so divorced from like how reflective and fucking smart she is. Like if you ever have a conversation with Calla, like I mean, Calla does different types of things, right? So she'll do media to try to get people to support political prisoners that are doing hunger strikes in the UK, right? Or she'll go to Iran and do media to show people realities there or whatever, right?
She's fearless. She's absolutely fearless.
She's fearless. She's committed, right? In a way that very few people are. And I have honestly, like one of the, well, let me save that point. I'll just say I am defensive of people who have that type of commitment, because I think that that is special and rare. And whether I would do the things that they do is really not the point, because I'm not that fucking committed, right? So like for me to sit there and say, well, actually what she should do is start a mass organization and tell people to, do politics in this way, right? And she hasn't read enough fucking Kautsky or whatever, these social dem chuds are saying. Like, fuck you. You know what I mean? Like you haven't done
this
half
includes
of
the
the
flotilla
things.
too. This includes the flotilla people.
They also said stuff about her.
No, I mean this includes like when you
them.
yeah, like no, I mean the courage that they have is way more than anything I've ever done. As if talking to a mic is hard. Come on.
Yeah. Like you're going to get arrested and you're going to be put in a Zionist dungeon where they will torture you in any way that we don't know. Like maybe they'll have a dog rape you. I don't know. They do that shit, right? So like we're talking about really disgusting people who just have like no limits to their depravity. So anyway, um, sorry, that went to a dark place, but I have a lot of
No, it's
respect
true
for,
though, because that's the thing. Like
yeah,
when you take on empire in a real material way beyond words, which is to say, like they will harm you, and they want you to hear about these stories. They want you to hear, they do these beatings so you go back and tell your friends, be like, that was a message to all of you. So they pick on people like Calla to send a message to future women and young men like her who share her passion for anti-imperialism but are too afraid, so they make an example out of her. And the fact that she's like just fearless in the face, and she's also lived like 16 lifetimes. Like she had her own like political engagements. Like she's open about what happened to her. She's very honest. Like people triple her age don't have a fraction of the courage and also the honesty and like courage that it takes to be honest about yourself and to like talk about things that happen to you, like, and to like do what she's done. They're now involved with, shout out to Vocal Politics, we'll link to them.
yes.
They've been involved in that. So we should all have one fraction of the courage that people like Calla have, that people who are on the flotilla have. Like, I will never, you cannot, you could put a gun to my head, I will not denounce them for anything. Like, come on, man, like, get out of here. Look at this, so look at the sociopathy of our society, how it doesn't even, it's numb to the greatest crime of the modern era, I will say, like just in scale and in timeline, and just all the violence, and then all the violence done to any of its opponents, anyone, like the evils we have witnessed, that the fascism undergirding our society, exposing itself to fight back against, like, what Alexa Flood represents. Like, it's our duty to represent this for the rest of our lives. We have to, like, 20 years from now, we still have to be podcasting, if only to remind people of like what this era is, what their crimes done. And yeah, like, it's, I don't know. Sorry, I interrupted you, but yeah.
No, you didn't, because I was my train of thought had come to a screeching halt anyway. But Brandon, I just want to respond to this quickly. It would be easier to take Calla seriously if they didn't smear other leftists and left orgs with crazy accusations. I mean, I think like this is this gets into something that I did want to talk about, which was the point I was like, I'll save till later. Is people sometimes come to me and they say like, why do you platform anarchists? Like, you're not an anarchist, and um this in their view, this politics is a dead end, right? Or it ultimately dovetails with liberalism and XYZ ways and all of this kind of things. And like, I don't necessarily disagree analytically in a lot of ways, especially with a lot of anarchist like theory and um the way, especially that like professional anarchists, I know that sounds like a weird term, but like people who like are the spokespeople of anarchism and who like are kind of that sort of thing. And even academic anarchism, like we could talk about this because that's also a thing, like academic Marxism is, and there's a lot there that we could critique. But the reason that I usually do is not because I agree with all of their critiques or their politics, right? It's more because there is something I think that we have to reckon with, and people can think of it. I know this gets critiqued a lot as adventurism by, Marxist Leninists, and I understand that critique. I don't necessarily fully disagree with it. But there's actually an episode on adventurism that I should put out that's been in the vault for a while. But um the thing is that like it is in a certain way the responsibility, I think, of the organizations to convince people that they're doing enough, that the militant people want to be a part of them, right? And I think that the failure to do that, to kind of meet where people are, and I get it. I get the context that we live in. I get that organizations don't want to just be crushed by the FBI, and so this is also why I don't personally try to engage in the critique of a lot of these organizations that a lot of anarchists or Maoists engage in, around like saying that Marxist Leninist organizations are counterinsurgent or that kind of stuff. Like I don't believe that, but I also don't think it's a generative critique. Um, but what I do think is that the people who are willing to engage in direct action at a level where they're putting themselves at significant risk are a really precious group of folks that are very often alienated from the organizations that exist, right? Because they think, and I understand the dynamics in which this can come about because those people in a certain way, it's like handling nitroglycerin to some extent, right? Like you're afraid that this person could be a detriment or a threat to the sustainability of your organization, right? If they do something that's dangerous and it brings down heat. And we've seen that, right? Like, so I don't need like we know COINTELPRO, we know agent provocateurs, we know all the context in which people are afraid of people who come in and are like, "Hey, I'm ready to do some shit." Like, where do we, like I get it. I get that that's the playbook. So I'm understanding of all of the challenges around this and why why organizations might behave in a more moderate position towards militancy, but it also we have to understand that those dynamics are going to produce this kind of effect. Like there is going to be tension between people who want to engage in direct action, who want to confront the systems, people, individuals, organizations, institutions, parties that they see as like putting on a break to their militancy. Like, that's gonna happen, and I think that we all have to be adults about that, right? And I think it's to the extent that, Calla's out of line in some of the things that she says, like, maybe that is the case. But I also think that there's a critique that should be also a self-critique there for a lot of the left within the US, which is that w- like what is the roadmap to meet the historical moment in which we live within a death machine that is trying to kill the entire planet, like, and is trying to kill us too in the process, a little more slowly, right? And what are we doing? So anyways, I don't, and I, that's not necessarily targeted at Brandon. I know Brandon organizes and I appreciate that and all of that, but I do want to say that just broadly to folks is just like there's gonna be people who are frustrated because they're watching this live stream 4K genocides, and we're gonna see more and more of this, right? The technology is there that we're gonna see what empire has always done and always been about, but they're gonna do more of it because they can't figure out how to manage this crisis of accumulation. And as Ali Kadri teaches us, like they resolve that crisis through killing. Like that is how they do it. So anyway, it's a structural problem that we have to like figure out our solution to, in my opinion.
No, yeah, and I'm pleased. I'm pleased, at least for my own view, which is I get to like I can cop out at least with this, was like I'm a media guy. Like I'm here to do media. I can platform people. I can talk about ideas. I like to think that, I mean, partly in my own realm is that the information is so heavily policed that the inability to access any kinds of, let's say, indigenous resistance forces, which is they are, like the statements and their own political ideologies. And so if I can, one proud achievement I have recently is helping to bring the work of Mujamma Harakat out into a wider view. Because I mean, like I did a tiny thing, which is invite him on my podcast, which is why I built the show, which is for stuff like this, because I want to like break the blockade essentially on discussions of resistance and the Axis, that like we've internalized the Zionist media ban that they enforce on their platforms, but like they can't make words illegal. I mean, they can. They're trying to. They certainly did in the UK. They have done that in the UK. So sorry, Angloids. But they haven't done that here yet. And maybe in Canada they have some bills coming that I don't know. It'll probably be like they'll do it through, like the same way they always do it. They'll do some like, bullshit anti-Semitism thing. They'll frame it as like protecting harm of this precious people whose lives are more valuable than the rest of us. And in the name of anti-racism. So it's like that's how it will go. But in the meantime, while we have that, you can still talk about this stuff. You can still bring light to it. Don't internalize. Like I'm trying to this, and I know this because I've seen it happen with Iran. Is that like I've seen people internalize the Zionist kind of like ban on anything Iranian, and they're like, oh, not that I stand with the regime, like that always that kind of that sort of effort to defray or to I don't have the word defray. God, I'm loopy. To kind of like just sort
Deflect.
of like deflect or cushion the blow of whatever radical thing you're going to propose, which is, I don't know, maybe Iranians are human and they deserve to live, and you're not allowed to sort of say anything different at this point. But I think that at the end of the day, something I've learned throughout all of this is like never like if there is a certain realm of respectability that's kind of policed by the class of people who operate in the kind of culture industry. It's not a great term for it. It's kind of expired to call it that way, but I kind of use it that way. And that includes academia, news, or whatever kind of in the sphere that we're in. And I never been a respectable guy. And I exist beyond that bounds of respectability. Some people do like to to exist within those realms, and that's fine for them. That's fine. But at the end of the day, I know that like to talk about like Hamas, even just saying the name, it triggers some freaking algorithmic panic attack somewhere in like the server bowels of YouTube. And yeah, like it costs you views. I mean, there's a reason why we're small too, why we don't get fed into the algorithm. That like it's because what we say is deemed to be politically haram, and you can't share that stuff. We're just never going to have that. And on top of that too, like our shows take time. You have to sit there, you have to like work through these things. Like we just produced an episode on Mali for this other show that I produced for AISC. You should go check it out. It was on my channel, but they're streaming again today. Oh God, we have that in a few hours. But like that, there was I learned a lot through that episode, and I'm like sitting online eating all this stuff up. Like, so like there's always like stuff to be out there that's good, that's nourishing. And even if like small numbers of people do it, but I don't know. I can't remember where I was going with all this. I'm looping.
Sina is fasting, by the way, for folks.
I'm fasting, everyone. I love it. This is my new religion. Everyone needs to do intermittent fasting. Stop what you're doing right now and do intermittent fasting. You didn't know you needed to intermittent fast. You don't need to do the full 16 hours, folks. You don't need to do it. Even 12 hours is amazing. Everybody fast with me. Text me later and tell me how long you fasted. Food is old news. Food is fake news now. Just say no to food. Boo, food.
Yeah, I mean, so I would love actually if you want to talk about some of the recent stuff that you've done. I mean, I think that you're doing really good stuff, and it's like your niche in the podcast realm is a super important one, and it's one that we were not even really dipping our toes into before October 7th, 2023, because I mean, we had a few conversations on Palestine and stuff, but just not anything in terms of the depth of conversations that you've had over the years, just on the whole Arab Iranian region. And it's like, and that is a product, like, I don't mind even saying it. It's a product of our own Orientalism, right? Like, it's a product of the way that had been ingrained in us to such an extent as kind of like that this is not, for some reason, right? That this is not something that is worth us delving into as anti-capitalist, anti-imperialists, podcaster, which I think is also a real product of the kind of Western Marxist indoctrination, to the extent that we even like understood enough at that point to even be that deep into that camp. But just there's so much history there, and it's also it's a chore, right? And this is part of it. Anything that you podcast about, it takes work to figure out who to talk to, what conversations to have. It leads to mistakes, right? You will platform people that you regret. You're like, oh, I should not. In hindsight, that was a bad choice.
Oh yeah.
And like we've both lived through various versions of that over the years. And but you have to do it, right? And there has to be this effort. And I've been, a couple people have reached out to me recently and said, like, look, you're not having any conversations on Iran that are that useful to us, right? Like you're
Damn, bro.
and
Who are these demanding listeners you have?
no, really. I get it. And it's not, and they're not wrong, right? Because it's like the difficulty is I don't know the sphere. Like I've learned a little bit of the sphere, the intellectual sphere around like Palestine, right? But like within each, region or area, you're like, okay, well, who are the people to talk to? And then what are the confines of the conversation to have with that person? Right? Because also people have their own areas of expertise, and they may also have areas where, and maybe we can take this to a platform politics discussion too at some point, because that I know we talked about doing that. But like they also have areas where you might politically disagree with them in ways where you're like, I actually don't want you to come on here and talk about that. But tell me about that thing that you know a lot about that we really do need to know about. Because I think this is the other side of it too, is like, I think sometimes people get caught up in like, why are you platforming that person? They have regressive views in this way or that way. This happens a lot to me. People say this shit to me. And it's like, well, like, fine, but like, who else is studying this thing in a way that we can learn something that's useful based on our politics, right? But anyways, go ahead, man. What are some of the things you've had some good stuff lately?
No. I know that's a good point what you're bringing up. I think it's something that I've wrestled with, because it's like there's that there's the natural sort of, let's say, sociological tendency among people in media and just in general whose like kind of work is, let's say, discursive, which is to aver from confrontation, right? Like you and I are not Piers Morgan. Like I'm not gonna have like a shouting match with Ben Shapiro on my show. Like we're not even, that's not what we do. That's the thing. It's like it goes back to the question of like the size of our audience, the nature of our conversations, the scale of let me basically rephrasing this, which is the scale of the potential of our reach, which is to say, given the, not like the actual audience, because it could be a lot. I think there's an actual big audience for what we're doing. It's just that we're not allowed. We're basically censored. That's the reality. Like we'll never compete. And that's why the Joe Rogans of the world exist, is to fill the void that's left by like, okay, when you suck out everything that's nourishing, they give you Cheetos, whatever. They give you like cheese puffs. That's what you get. And you get to live on that. But I think, yeah, the question of whom to invite, whom to speak to. So like you don't want to sit there and fight with someone because it's like an energy drain. You want to actually, and on top of that, the energy that you give off to the world when it's like confrontational, that for me at least is not where I shine. Like I'm not like a good fighter and I don't like engage. I mean, I've had a few shouting episodes that didn't get published that will never be seen by the world unless you message me and you want to hear. I'm just kidding.
Oh man,
This
should be your Patreon content right there. Cena is like
exactly.
the like Cena episode's gone wrong.
But then you realize that like Piers Morgan having like having that scum Erica Laban fascist, the Goldie Kamari fascist, two fascist women, by the way. We should talk about also like the cynical deployment of women, by the way, because it cuts both ways. They not only go after anyone, anti fascist women, they also send out quote unquote sexy fascist women to shout at them, right? Like to lead and to like, and so that's what the Iran case study is like. Actually, what we should do, Jared, if you're getting shit from your listeners, about your Iran, I'll do an episode with you. Just to with Ali, the episode that I've been trying to do with Ali. Ali's like a fairy. You can't catch him. You have to get like a bottle out and like pin him down. He's impossible to catch. But something that I've wanted to do for a long time is this episode on the Iranian media, not just diaspora media, but like the sort of vast sort of like spectrum of Iranian media, and how there's like a tiny portion of it which is like government, or like basically state funded, or sort of like and friendly to the state, obviously, and then the rest is sort of like unhinged chuds and screaming like freaks, and this is like an old culture too, like shot like before online people, before there was like the Goldies and the whatever. By the way, that woman, if you didn't know this, her original name is Golsa. That's her real name. She changed her name to Goldie. Gee, I wonder what constituency she appeals to, and therefore with the name Goldie. I'm just gonna leave that out there, but she did that. So like like partly like this atmosphere that we're in has these strange characters that you have to like navigate around, and yeah, like it doesn't, you can't, we can't compete in the dopamine factory with that. Like we are not like dopamine machines the way those shows are that like Piers does. And say for instance why Marandi still goes and he sits in the hot seat, because that's also like, that's an older tradition too of media too, which is like the barbarative whatever, like the talking head one-on-one. And actually our culture kind of, Piers Morgan is kind of like a rarity. Most of it is not like that. Even CNN, the way they do that is, it's not like a belligerent broadcaster versus like guest. They do fake podcasts. They have fake podcasts, and the podcasters do that work, right? Like they go after most of the energy, at least on CNN, from what I can tell. I mean, they get in on it too, but then there's stuff like Bill Maher, another fucking fascist, genocidal psycho. Like these guys get like billions of views collectively, like in a month. Like that's disturbing. That's the real question of an episode of this, is that like, how do we de-radicalize Westoids, and how do you then radicalize them the right way? This is the difficulty of our task, is like we're facing a fascist onslaught, and I only have so much hot air. Like I can only do so much. And then you're just like, okay, 400 views later, like you're still in the same place, but I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, like the platforming thing is an interesting, just to stay there for a minute. Like it's a really interesting discussion because there's like a heavy promotion of, and it comes from various political traditions, but like no platforming of fascists, which like I don't have a problem with. Like I'm not trying to bring a fascist onto my show and be like, hey, like let's have a conversation. And I agree with you. The point about whether you are willing to actually like debate and have a contentious argument with folks is an important factor, right? Like I've said this a lot, but like to Jared Ball's credit, when he strongly disagrees with what a guest has to say, like he will confront them about it and be like, I think you're promoting a bad idea here, right? And say why. And that's hard to do on the spot because also like, I mean, one, people study debate and learn how to do it effectively and are good at it. And I'm sure Marandi has, right? Like I know like Mohammed Al-Kurd has studied it, right? In like his book is even written in that way, right? Perfect Victims, of like how to confront certain arguments and understanding all these logical fallacies and all these things that people use in debate, and then how do you like break through them and so on. Susan Abu Hawa is good at it, right? There's people who are good at this, but then a lot of us like it's just not it's just not really in us. It's not really what we want to do. And also, like, I'm like, if I'm going to debate somebody, I actually need to like really prepare my arguments. And usually, if I'm like reading somebody's book and talking to them about it, or reading an article and talking to them about it, which is a lot of what I do, I haven't done that work to actually like, and it's hard because these people have studied their shit, right? So it's like they're prepared. They've done their thesis defense or whatever else, right? So they're also prepared to argue with people about these topics. And so you're at a deficit if you try to debate them. So shout out to people who do good jobs on debates. Like Brianna Greyjoy also like does that kind of stuff sometimes with people. Um and or Joy Gray. Anyway, the thing about platforming for me is that, like, I don't so when people bring up stuff of like this person has a bad position on this thing,
Oh,
like
that's
this
so
issue,
annoying. That's so annoying.
and they do,
The opinion
right?
police is here. Opinion police showed up.
Well,
They're here to issue a ticket.
I hear you, Cena, but like on some level, I get it, right? Because we have an audience that includes a lot of diverse groups of people who represent different segments. And so it's like if somebody is like kind of shitty on LGBT issues and stuff, like this, it pisses people off. Like, why are you putting this person on here? And I mean, part of my response to it is like, I'm not like platforming somebody is not an endorsement of all of their politics, right?
Exactly.
It is saying,
Can you clip this, please? Can you clip this out when you say this? Just start again. Sorry, I'm not going to interrupt you.
um, yeah, platforming people is not an endorsement of all of their politics, right? It does not mean there are not significant disagreements on things. We platform people like part of the frustration that I have with this view is like we've talked to a lot of liberals over the years, and people don't bring this up when we talk to liberals. And to me, like liberalism is as if not more dangerous than if somebody who is like a radical anti-imperialist is wrong on, some of these concerns, which are very legitimate causes and struggles and things that we should be, from my view, trying to incorporate into our politics, right? But it becomes like, okay, but the conversation that we're having is not about that thing. And if we were having a conversation about that thing, we would have a disagreement about it, right? But the conversation that we're having, right, is about an area where this person brings something to our analysis that we should take seriously. And I think that that's important. Like, I,
Because
I think
that's
it's
why they're on
important.
your show. That's why the show exists. You don't just like have a show so some chud can talk about their opinion that's like not relevant to me. Like if I sorry, I agree with you. I mean, 100%.
No, it's just, it's also like, and this goes back to one of the things when Rockhill talks about the commodity aspect of theory, he talks about how that relates then to a consumerist method of engaging with politics. I want to go to the politics store and purchase the politics that
Yes.
fit every single issue exactly the way that I want. And I want all of us to be able to buy that politics so that then that politics will be into global being, right? And it doesn't work that way, right? Like you are going to organize with people if you're good enough at it, and I'm not, but other people who are listening to this are, you're going to organize with people who disagree with you on things, who have wrong views and wrong beliefs. Like everybody has these, like there's issues. I get people come to me and they say, "Hey, you don't platform enough women." True, right? Like it's accurate. I go through the detail of it,
Oh yeah,
and it's
me
like
too. Me too.
it's like 30%, right? Something like that. Like,
Mine is
maybe
like
less
less,
sometimes.
way less. Mine is embarrassingly
Yeah.
less. Shameful.
Yeah, and so, like, it's a problem, and I don't mind being self-critical and saying, like, I'm not doing a good enough job there, and then trying when people bring this up, like, "Okay, who should I have on?" Right? What conversations should we have, right? Those things. We have to be reflective and accountable on these issues too. But the notion that, like, yeah, that you're just gonna find the guests who and if you agree with the guests on every single thing too, like, how challenging is that to you intellectually also? Like, how I like, we're not gonna build politics among finding a group of people that agree with us on every single thing. That's not what politics are. I mean, Arlene Eisen, we had a conversation about this, I think, actually offline. She was talking to me, and she was nailing something, which is like that there sometimes is, in our view, like when we get too focused in on psychology, counterinsurgency, um, some of these different things, right? Part of what we're doing also is getting too focused on the subjective level, right? Like, how does this make us feel? Do I, as a person, is this what I want? Is this what I want to buy from the politics store? This is not what I want to buy from the politics store. So I say it's a shitty product, right? And I just think that that's not, like, we're going to have to come to, like, you have chud neighbors, and that's a reality that you live in. I do too, right? And I also have just shit lib neighbors. I have shit lib neighbors all around me, right?
The
Zios,
worst. The
like
worst.
they're, and like that is the reality. Like we don't get to struggle just in the conditions of our choosing, right? As Mark said, right? And so I just think that I know that the show is supposed to in some ways be an escape out of that for people, and I think maybe that's where is they're like, look, I want your place to be the place that is pure from all of these things, but it's not going to be, like it isn't. And
It would be
when
so
I make a point,
boring. It would be so
yeah,
boring. Can you
anyway,
imagine 8 years of being pure? It'd be like, I don't know, one of those normie shows. Just like, hello, we're here. Like, I have a question. This is sorry. I don't mean
no,
like
go
this
ahead.
relates because like this is our field, obviously, but like like what do the Chapo guys do? Like what do they like what and like the True Anon guys, like do they like they because their audience is like American Westoids, right? Like completely. I mean, so is ours, but our audience is, let's say, more hopefully more worldly. But I meant more like their audience are provincial Westoids who know and live in that extremely online bubble. I'm maybe I'm maybe I'm doing slurs and I'm just doing sociological violence. But like with that big of an audience, right? Like that. What do like are they? What do you actually do with that? Do you use that to like nourish, or do you stay mostly? Which is like my memories of the show are this. Like when I used to listen to it, and I listened to it for like several years, maybe 3 years, maybe like three. I listened. They were very big, and they're still very big and you notice a kind of you notice their influence in the podcast in their podcast realm. But my question is in all this, and I know that like, it's not like they've been like shitty on the genocide or anything. It's just more that the audience themselves is not prone to being interested in the world. They're interested in American stuff. Like they're interested in the stuff they recognize. And I think it's hard to get, like, this is why I brought the Mali episode up. It's hard to get people interested in Mali unless it's forced down their throats. So like you can either be popular or you can be nourishing is my fear. And that's like you're back to like the high fidelity Jack Black character problem of like you could be popular or you could be good. You can't be both. And like that's you can, because being popular means feeding back to people what is popular, which is like not very challenging stuff, not very nourishing stuff. Am I slandering the Chapo guest roster? Maybe I do know they have a shitless dumbass on often to talk about Iran. I think that's what I haven't listened in a while, but I don't make much of that. I do wish that at times like this they would be a bit more courageous in their guest roster. But at the end of the day, even if they did, it wouldn't be. I don't know. It's here. Let me put it this way. Um, the I think what will I think more than likely than like a more movement cohering across classes and across regional, because the US is vast, right? It's a continent, it's not a country, it's a continent. That's something implicit in all of this too, that like one of the reasons why a show like Chapo can be so big, where like four dudes talking to a mic professing their politics can grow so big, is because it's spanning a continent of people. It like taps within that resource that has immense influence beyond that continent too, because of its nature, because of its culture, industry, all kinds of reasons. So they have like a lot of built-in potential already. Like an Iranian guy starting a podcast in Persian is limited in a way that like a guy speaking in English isn't. Oh God, did I lose this? So
You're good.
anyways, that's all that is to say that, like you wonder, like even if they did that kind of content that I wish they would do, I don't know. I should be fair to them and go see what they've done. But I'm presuming that like to leave that American bubble, that like they wouldn't be as popular. They would die out. Or not die out, but like they would tune out. They would rather go and participate in like the tenets of like online life. Which is, superficial analysis, stick to the regular sites, retweet, drop site, like the comfortable people, like don't like have whatever regime change scam is going that week to talk about. I don't know. Maybe they're better than that. But I think overall that you're allowed to meander within a certain space in like the culture industry. And if you venture off that space, there are consequences. That like there are professional and like mediatic consequences, or algorithmic, let's say. So we clearly will never abide by those rules. So we have, but maybe somebody listening to this down the line will start their own show, which will become popular, that they can say, oh, I had a heavy influence. Like the way people talk about Street Fight now. Remember Street Fight? Like those guys,
Yeah.
was it Street Fight? Yeah, like Brian
Yeah.
and like that was a hugely influential show, hugely in how they did things, and you can still hear their influence today. I mean, probably Chapo is one of their legacies, if anything. But just in terms of like I guess you do things in this world for hope. I guess this is like the vain artist in me, the bourgeois artist in me talking. But you do hope that what you do in this world reverberates. And in this case, it's literally for us because it's sound traveling. But there's literally no sound. It's digital sound, so it's not the same thing. So it is a figurative like reverberation. But it's you hope that the thing you produce in your lifetime continues. And the other day, someone sent me a paper that I wrote when I was a kid, and I saw that like 29 people cited it. I was like, ha! Something I did, 29 people cited it. That's amazing. Like I laugh, but because you have this kind of impulse in you to live forever. But for us, it's like a political message, which is like you hope this radicalism spreads. You're like a sourdough. Like give this yeast away to someone and let this tanky bread grow, and that's all you can do. That's really what you can do. You can nourish people, or you can and hopefully work to radicalize them in a good way.
The Yeast is a podcast.
That's awesome.
Um, I mean, yeah, I'd be lying if I didn't say that. Like, yeah, I do think it is a very bourgeois idea, but it is true that that thought around legacy, or like, I mean, it always feels great when you open somebody's book and like one of your episodes is in the footnotes, or like they thank you in the acknowledgments or whatever, right? Like that's super meaningful when I've had those experiences, and I show my kids and they're like, I don't care, dad, like that's who gives a shit, like
Fuck them,
uh
listeners.
no, my kids do not think highly of my my career path. But anyway, what was it? Now I'm like lost in the
Validation.
sauce.
We were
Yeah.
going down validation road.
Yeah, but that was not even the point that you made that I wanted to dig into though. Because that element. Oh, back to, I guess, to Chapo. I mean, I'm so bad at all of this, like, and it's part of, like, people like when I have those conversations with Carlos from Deculturation, but it's really not my lane because I don't pay attention to any of these people. Like, I don't care about what Chapo or Majority Report or fucking Bad Hesbara. Like, I don't care who these people are or what they have to say. Like,
Yeah.
there's no reason for me to like waste my time there. And it is part of back to the question for me of, yeah, wanting to create things that are actually nourishing and um support growth and unity um and just politicization and people joining organizations and so on and so forth. But the thing about Chapo, I think, is, and it's a through line. It connects Hassan, it connects a lot of these projects, right? Is like they're basically in certain ways have built their networks or their Patreons, like all of this stuff. I mean, in part because they do what they do well, to give them credit, right? And they do figure out ways to talk about things that, you know touch on certain receptors for people psychologically and are like, "Oh, that's funny. I like that. Yeah, I thought that was crazy too." Like that kind of stuff. Um, but like I do think that a lot of this media that we're talking about, it essentially tailed the Bernie project, right? Like it promoted it. It was like engaging it in that way, and it's really like it got, because that, so in a certain way there is a like a movement there that happens because Democratic Party politicians, they have legitimacy within the system. Like, I wish that they fucking didn't, but the reality is that, millions of people get behind these things, or hundreds of thousands of people get behind these things, and it's like, well, what's the media that's not, you know, fucking foaming at the mouth, like, calling them, dirty commie, this, that, like, what's the media that's actually talking about these things in ways that make me feel good about it. And I think also, I mean, the fact that, like, I think a DSA even was promoting, I don't know if they still do, but at a certain point it was like, hey, listen to Chapo Trap. like it was almost like a DSA product at a certain point. I don't know if I'm wrong about that,
I don't
misremembering,
know. They
or
were never affiliate, and also Bernie never famously never actually did an episode. I don't think they actually got close to the campaign, and then afterwards, if any, I guess, yeah. I mean, who knows? I mean, it's just that the thing is, for us, it's like they're so popular, so you watch them or you consume them, and you see them also in action because partly the story here is that they have huge Twitter following, so it's like their show is a product of a different era, is the legacy of a product of the legacy of that era of Twitter, which is much different than the era we live in now, where no one will ever see you tweet ever again. Like you
dude,
can't. Yeah, like no, I never see anything you write. No one ever sees anything. Yeah, we're done.
Elon Musk just like came in. Like, how much dark money do you think that Elon Musk got from like the state or
It was
whatever in
Saudis. It was
order
the Saudis. It's Saudis.
in
Yeah.
order to fucking take down Twitter, right? In order to like destroy its ability to actually be an online conversation that people could engage in, to just nuked it. And now we have 7 different versions of Twitter that people are on based upon their identity and political home, basically. You got Chud Twitter,
Yeah.
uh, you
There's
got
there's a
Shitlib
constituency for
Twitter,
everyone. Yeah. There's
you
Tanky
got
Twitter. We got
yeah,
Global South Twitter. I can't believe
yeah,
it's called
it's
X. I can't believe it's called fucking X, man. What a stupid name. What a just oh.
the tech
Jay, now
overlords.
we're now into the phase of complaining about social media websites. I think that's time. That's our cue. That's our cue.
Okay,
2 hours. 2 hours,
but
4 minutes.
yeah, this is nothing to me, but I know it's a lot
Yeah.
for you. Um,
Did you
I could
hear
do this
that,
all day.
chat?
um, but one thing though, just as we close out, like the tech folks, like these are our arch enemies
Oh
in
yes.
this
Oh
period of
yes.
time.
Yes.
Like this, like
Yes.
if we're thinking about the faction of the ruling class that is like the most dangerous right now, it is it's the tech bros. It's the like and it's from their overlords, the Alex Karps and the Peter Thiels and the Elon Musks, but all the way down to like these like, you know, your random dude who works in San Francisco, right? That works like it's just the whole thing is just I don't know if
Yeah. No,
there's any
we have to
group of
seriously consider the nexus of fascism and liberalism and how it all meets in San Francisco and Silicon Valley, California in general. There's like it's no, American fascism is a multi-headed hydra. It's like a total and it comes in many guises and it articulates seemingly contradictory positions, but they all unite around their bloodthirsty like brutality and imperialness. And the fact that watching libs completely fail during these like last 2.5 years to even hold a fraction of their ruling class and like accountable, and just watch them kowtow to Zionism at every turn, just proved like they're actually more ruthless than the chuds. Like that's the reality, is that like the nice people are far more ruthless when really sort of, because there's a kind of like, because even like the fascist nature of like this war against Iran, like Pistol Pete, fucking dumbass Chud Hegseth, like that is an articulation of a certain kind of American imperialism. And liberals are mad that he's not more professional. They're not mad about the imperialism part. They're mad at the professionalism part. They're mad that he farts at the podium of the Pentagon and not that he's a fucking war criminal. It's
and
not
that
the
he
war
does the
criminal part.
and then he rehashed the
Oh
the
god,
the
from Pulp
prayer
Fiction.
from Pulp
Oh
Fiction. Yeah.
god. Oh
Yeah.
dude, you're so fucking hacky.
All right. So I'm gonna go through a few things in the chat and then I'll get you out of here so that you can,
Yay, chat.
break your fast or whatever
Oh
you need to
God, I
do.
didn't even promote. I didn't promote a fundraiser I was going to promote,
Well, let's
guys.
do that. Like,
Can
so
you do
let's
that?
so let,
Can you guys fund it? Can you guys give some money to Mohammed, please?
yes, let's do
I was supposed to
Mohammed.
do this a
So
lot earlier. Yeah.
no, we're gonna
Sorry,
do it
guys.
now. Folks are here. So Mohammed is trying to buy a laptop. And
Use
I
the
think he
phone again
needs.
now.
Yeah, I put it in the. Yeah, put it. I'll drop it in the show description too. I'll also drop it in the chat. But first of all, we should remind people like Muhammad and his siblings were orphaned in the genocide. So these children and young adults, teenagers basically, right? That you see here, like they don't have parents right now, and they're in Gaza, and Sina has been supporting them for you know over a year now in terms of promoting their campaign. But also, it's Mohammed, right, that is the IT student, right, and needs a laptop, which he's trying to fundraise, like I think around $700 or something like that to get. So that's a reasonable thing that I think we can help if everybody pitches in a little bit or whatever you can do, that we can help him get that. And that will help him both in his school because he's an IT student, but also, should help him get some kind of, even if it's, like not full employment, but gig employment and stuff like that. It'll help him raise some money to be able to support him and his siblings as well. So I encourage people to do that. Anything else you want to say on that, Sina?
No, yeah, I should have brought it up much earlier. So people who are still here, please, 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 even $5. Think of remember it's the Hormuz toll. Please, just think of it as the podcast Hormuz. Just give your $5 and or more if you can. Just yeah, he's been going through it.
He has, and yeah, I
Should've
mean,
brought it
like,
up
and all
earlier.
of this sounds silly because it's like, even if they were horrible people and just whatever, like, we should still support them. But at the same time, like, they're really sweet young folks, and um, look out for each other, but also other people. And yeah, anyway, support them if you can.
Thank
Really
you,
appreciate
guys.
it. I
Yeah,
will
thank
give
you,
something.
everyone. Thank you, Jay.
Um,
Thank you.
and yeah, I put the link is in the chat. I also put it in the show description so you can update that. And yeah, I would consider bringing on Doctors Against Genocide for sure. So yeah, let me know. Um, and what else? Oh, the let me go to the few comments I highlighted. Is there I think there's a defeatist doomerism in the Western left. Like, does anyone really think we will get communism before we get fascism? And yeah, I mean, I don't even know that that's too doomerist, but what I would say,
Wait, before we get fascism? Is this the before? Don't we have fascism? Isn't this fascism?
yeah, there's that. But I think also, like, one of the things that I would say is that, you know, I don't think it's defeatist necessarily to understand, where people are at, what politics are popular, who has more guns in this country, et cetera, et cetera. And just think about that reality. But I do think that also, I don't know whether the United States will remain structurally whole. Like, it would be pretty amazing in some respects if it was able to manage its own contradictions and maintain its structural integrity throughout its decline as an empire. I don't know, actually. It's a good question of, like, historically, right? What empires have maintained their borders, right? So, as they have fallen apart, I can't, other than, I don't know that I can point to a real example, because even if you're talking about, like, the British Empire, it
There's
really
nothing
didn't.
like this. Nothing like
Yeah,
this. We have
yeah,
no
it really
script.
didn't.
There's no
Yeah.
especially the fact that they brought this on themselves. It's like
Yeah.
it's hard to fathom. I don't know. Sorry, I interrupted you.
So no, so I just think it's important. That's why organizing is important and building is important. And even if, like, you're starting somewhat, small, and it feels whatever, it's like people are going to have to come to the reality of the situation at some point, and that's also going to cause people to realize that the politics that they've held, long term, are not viable, right? And so yeah, I don't know.
Jay, I do
And
want
I,
to your point about no influence. Someone messaged me during this episode and told me to tell you that when they showed up, it was a guest of your show. It was a guest of your show, and they said, have you been? They knew the guest. They knew that the person was like a fan of your show. This is at the Folger Shakespeare Library. So you have a fan at the Folger Shakespeare Library. It turns out.
wait, so what happened?
A friend of mine who has been a guest on this show showed
Okay.
up to the Folger Research Library, and that person was like, "Hey, you've been on Millennials Are Killing Capitalism."
I mean,
So
that
we
type of
have
shit. That Yeah.
friends in random places. I get
No.
stopped I get stopped in Toronto. Like, "Are you Sina Rahmani?" I'm like, "Oh God, no."
Yeah,
Are you serving me with a lawsuit? If yes, no, I'm not. If it's
it's
anything else,
true.
yes.
It's true. And I appreciate all of that stuff. I think there's also a way that we can kind of, um like, I don't know. Yeah. Anyways, I do appreciate all of that stuff, but it is kind of like, we also know, like, there's also the reality that the group of people that we know is small and goes to the same places.
Yes, yes, that's true too. But the
It's like,
Folger Shakespeare Library is a pretty good one. That's pretty.
yeah,
We're doing something right.
we're big with librarians. Shout out to the librarians listening.
Shout out to our librarians. They keep the world. Thank
People
you,
who
Jay.
like books. I think that's part of it, because yeah, when I worked at a bookstore, there
That's
was a lot of
true.
people who came in and like, "Are you Jay from Millennials Are Killing Capitalism?"
I think that's the thing. Like we think of what we do is so small, and it is small in terms of numbers. It's just that nobody even does this stuff that we do. Like there's nobody even close who has anything of the range that we have. And the fact that like there are other communities spawning in this realm that like we've been around in long. We didn't author this realm by any extent, but we've been around for a long time, if only because we stayed here. We're like, yeah, everyone comes and goes, but we're still here. So yeah, there is something to that. Like we have to fight. We have to fight for literacy. There is a war on literacy, like in the literate sense, in like the literal sense, but a wider kind of cultural literacy that we're starting to lose. And we have to I don't know. This is the podcast have to exist. We need some tiny flicker of independent media, because if we don't, we'll all go crazy.
Shout out to every librarian except for this one, the one who took Gabriel Rockhill's book and burned it in the back. But anyway, shout out to the librarian who brought it to that library, though, at least. So, Sina, PJ says we are your volleyball.
That was a Castaway. That was a Castaway reference. Oh, Jay, this was fun. We got to do this more often. Let's do this every couple of weeks at least.
Yes.
You're my streaming pal.
No, I'm happy to do it. I gotta get some.
Thank you for donating. We have
For
donations. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, thank you for donating to Mohammed. I'm gonna do it as soon as I log off here. Yeah, appreciate it. Sina, is always good to be in discussion with you. And yeah, go Iran.
Thanks, brother. We already got 10 donations. Oh my God. 7 donations. You people are amazing. I love you all.
All right, man. All right.
Thank you.
All right. Peace,
Bye,
everybody.
everyone.